The last time I was here, I was going through a personal crisis. My uncle had just died unexpectedly, and my family was shaken up. I was about to go, I think, into my junior year of college, and it felt like a crazy time. And today, as I come back a couple years later, 23 years old, 2020, this incredible year, we are in a public series of crises. And it also feels like a crazy time again. And today, as I was praying, I just felt like the first thing that we need to remind ourselves of as we are inundated and surrounded by noise, constant messages, constant times of being berated by politicians to tell you of like what you need to care about, who you need to be. I just want to tell you that your voice means something, that you matter, that every person sitting in a chair has a voice. And I've gone through a time where I felt like I didn't have one and it didn't matter. And I will talk about that in just a second. But your voice matters. It doesn't matter what status of life you're in. You could be the president. You could be a preacher. You could be a plumber. Your voice matters. The tongue has the power of life and death. And that's for everyone. The tongue has the power of life and death, and we get to decide how we will use ours. We don't get to decide how others will use theirs. But in hearing these voices, hear voices. My main point, and if you don't hear anything else for the rest of this time I have, I want you to hear this. Hear voices, but listen to love. You get to decide what you listen to. You might not get to decide what you hear, but you will get to decide what you listen to. And I've recognized that in my own life. You know, voices for me have shaped me, compelled me, comforted me. You know, if my family members were here, I love my family. I've got a bunch of family members. If any single one of them was in here talking, there could be 100 people in this room. I would zero in on their voice because I know their voice. I love their voice. Voices matter. They can encourage us. They can empower us. But on the flip side, on the dark side, voices can abuse us, terrorize us. They can traumatize us. They can tear us down and steal something from us, leave us empty. So voices have power. Voices have power. If you want to put the first slide up of me as a baby, I'll tell you more about how voices have shaped me in my own life. This is baby Maddie. My mom got really into taking photos when I was a baby. I am the baby of 4 kids, and I was the fourth. So usually as the fourth child, you don't get a lot of photos. I have boxes. There's a closet full of boxes of photos of just me. Not the other kids, just Maddie. So, weird time. I don't have a lot of videos of myself, but I have probably 4,000 photos. So, I have an amazing family. I was born in Concord, North Carolina on December 31st, 1996. When my father found out that my mom was pregnant, she called him on the phone. Nothing was glamorous about that conversation. She said, "Joe," her name's Cecilia. She said, "Joe, I'm pregnant." And he was a youth pastor at the time. He was in the office, and he said, "Cecilia, no, you're not." And she said, "No, I am pregnant." She was very upset. I was a happy accident. I don't know how happy it was. So he said, "Cecilia, I'm going to have to call you back." Put the phone down. He said, Jay, if you come in here. And his best friend Jay came in, and he said, "I think I'm having a heart attack, and I need you to take me to the hospital." So I was a shock all around. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so one thing, yeah. Yay for 8s. One thing that we love is shocking people. We like seeing people's reactions. So I think it's fun that happened. However, I will say when I was a baby, the bad shock was that I had RSV. I almost died. My mom was like a nurse at the time, and she said, "I've had 3 other kids. None of them looked this color." something's wrong with my baby. I'm constantly suctioning her through the night. I'm a nurse. I know this isn't normal. They're like, oh, it's normal, she's calling. So she takes me to the hospital, and finally the doctors are like, this is not normal. She can't breathe. In fact, she hasn't been able to breathe so long that she will either die from this virus or she will have severe mental handicaps when she grows up. So that was kind of like only two options. And miracle happened, and I was a complete know-it-all and too smart for my own good, constantly correcting teachers, irreverent. I'd be in a Bible study or Sunday school, and I would raise my hand to correct the teacher on a verse. Like, actually, that's in the New Testament as a 5-year-old. So horribly smart, not even for my own good. So as I grew up, like I said, I was born in Concord, North Carolina. Woo, woo, love Concord. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia when I was a baby, probably like one of those ages when you saw that photo. I moved from Atlanta to Macon, Georgia around 3 or 4 years old. From Macon, Georgia to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida to Huntington, West Virginia, Huntington, West Virginia to South Point, Ohio, South Point, Ohio, back to Charlotte, North Carolina, all before the age of 10. Within those years, in 3 different states, I had 4 different older kids sexually abuse me. Some were in the church. So when you talk about like spiritual abuse or stuff like that, it means something to me because some of my worst memories of abuse happened from church people. And the way that I understood who I was unclean, and nobody knew what was going on. My family certainly didn't. But from what I heard from the church and society, because my disclaimer is, again, my family's awesome. They didn't tell me any of this. But what I heard from the church as a whole and from society was that if you had any sexual contact outside of marriage, you're unclean. Like God forbid someone marry a woman who has had sexual encounters before her wedding night. So the way that I understood myself, even at a very young age, was that I was dirty. And my little 8-year-old mind, like at the end of these 4 or 5 years of abuse that I had encountered, thought that I was more equipped to be a prostitute than I was to be a preacher. So I had 4 different sexual abusers. The first one was a childhood friend. If you'll just put that picture up of me as a baby again, I'll show you probably around this age right here, an older girl committed a sexual act on me, and I remember like, I don't want to do this, no, but it didn't matter. So the message I got from that was that my voice didn't matter. Again, very confusing, very young age. If you'll go to the next slide for me, it is me just a little bit older. That's my dad up there, that's my brother Kenan. This is me, so around this age, I had just a neighborhood girl. Later on, when things started making more sense, I think I came to realize that she was being raped by her father. Like, I put some clues together, had to do some trauma work, and the way that it made sense, that's the only way that she knew to do the things to me that she did. And the message I received from her when I said I was going to have to tell somebody because she was harming me and I was terrified was that you can't tell anyone. And if you do, I will kill you and I will kill your family. And so I learned a lesson. I heard a message. Okay, my voice threatens my family, so I can't use it. And around that age, if you want to go just to one more slide, I had probably around that age up there with my family, I had a boy assault me on a bus. And that boy later on was at one of my brother's birthday parties, and he cornered me by an arcade game. And when the assault happened, I was just kind of getting into the grit. That is something I know is a part of me now. I was like, no, I don't, like, don't do this to me. And a couple weeks later at the birthday party, I'll never forget, he cornered me and he said, I know you want me back. Who says that to a 7-year-old? And also, who tries to do what he did to a 7-year-old? I don't know. But that message stuck with me. And what I heard from it is, I know what you want better than you do. That's the message I heard. Later on, I had one more person who was older and took advantage of me, but at that point, the thing that I heard was, this is my normal. This is all okay. So from those childhood years, like I definitely had some behavioral issues that didn't really maybe make sense to my family at the time. They just thought I probably was like a little bit more rebellious. Again, love these people, they're great. I was silently suffering. I was silently feeling like, by the age of 8, like it would be better for my family and for the people that I love if I just didn't exist. So at that point, I was kind of plotting ways that I could kill myself. I was only in 3rd grade, so I didn't think very far. I never tried it, but it was at that point that God intervened. And I was at a youth group, a youth camp that my dad was preaching at, and I was in the back kind of hiding away in the darkness, and I was kneeling down, and I'll never forget it. Never, ever forget this. I'm praying, worshiping God. I loved him. I did not feel like I was worthy of him, but I was still worshiping as a little 8-year-old. And I heard God say this, similar to what he said to Kaylee. Madeline, I love you. I've called you. You are mine, and I want you to work for me. Heard those 4 things. Madeline, I love you. I've called you. You are mine, and I want you to work for me. And you know what I told God? No. No way. I said, you don't know me. You don't know me. You couldn't possibly know me if you wanted me to do this for you, because I am unclean. I am not good enough. I can't do this. I, again, thought I could be a prostitute, not a preacher. And he said, no, you don't understand. You are mine. No matter what anyone else has said to you, what you've learned from this world, you are mine. You're going to work for me. And so, at the age of 14, if you want to fast forward, the age of 14 was when I started my preaching career. And by that I mean I started getting paid to preach, which was really fun. And before then I did a lot of ministry stuff. But again, one thing I didn't do was tell anybody about what I had experienced. I silently suffered, and it wasn't until 15 years till after the abuse took place that I even told my family. And, of course, I wish I would have done that sooner, but God's timing is perfect, and there was a lot of healing that came. But I will say, healing came, but so did, mental breakdowns. Kim would know. I remember giving Kim a call, I don't know what's happening to me. It's getting really dark up in this head. And I was hearing voices. My biological grandmother had schizophrenia, and so we have a long history of some mental illnesses. So I didn't know is this the beginning of something? But what was happening that I didn't understand was that I had PTSD. And I had to learn about PTSD because I didn't know. It is a beast, and it takes on its own form, and it tries to control your life. And so when I was at college, had no idea, but the boy that assaulted me on a bus actually went to my college. Didn't know it till I was walking one day, and he was there. And without even deciding in my mind, in my voice, that I wanted to walk another way, my body went whoop and took me because my body felt threatened, I guess. And so I was making these decisions. I was acting different, and I didn't know what to do. So the way that I dealt with that at first wasn't good. I actually went to a therapist on my campus. I told her my story and how, I made it maybe over-spiritualized, God really helped me in things and whatever. She cried. Like, she was crying. She's like, I've never heard any of this. And look at you, and I'm comforting the therapist. I'm like, it's okay. Is this okay? Like, I think I'm going crazy. You've never heard of this? Okay, you're supposed to help me. I'm helping you. Fantastic. So, after that experience, I'm like, I got to get in with somebody that won't cry and who has heard this. Like, I don't want this story to be anyone else's, but I know it is. And so finally, I went to Kim, and I started that healing process. So, voices are so important. Those messages I heard as a child are still things that as an adult, I have to break through. I constantly hear this, that your voice doesn't matter. You can say no, but I won't listen. I thought that I had worked through it, and then one time I got really close to a relationship, like a romantic relationship, which is not my thing, like, to be honest. Having a boyfriend or having somebody you have to talk to every single day, be responsible for, like, make happy, sounds really rough. But I got pretty close one time, and the weirdest thing happened. I just kind of broke down to a friend. She's like, why are you fighting this so much? He, like, adores you. And I'm like, that's the problem. Like, he shouldn't love me. I respect him too much to wish myself on him. What? I didn't know I thought about myself that way. I was the girl on campus that I'm like, yeah, you're strong. Like, you got to love yourself. You got to listen to yourself. You can't love your neighbor until you love yourself, so get started. And here I was hating myself. I still hated myself because of what happened as a child. That's, PTSD, come on. I'm like, was so shaken and not in my own skin. And so my friend said, well, that's probably weird that you wouldn't wish yourself, because you're a wonderful person. You care about people. And we started digging and digging. I believed that if somebody asked something sexual of me, that I would have to comply. And I believed that if I was in a relationship, I would never be able to be faithful. And I had these really weird ideas. So something that's going to be important for all of us is to identify our own voice and hear who we are and what we need to believe about ourselves and the truth. The truth for us will be what's most beautiful, because that's how Jesus kind of works. Here's some simple math. If God is love, and Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and God is Jesus is God, then love equals truth. Love equals the way. Love equals life. So when I say hear voices, but listen to love, it's because you need to listen to that which brings you life. That's the way. Because if I'm listening to the things that the church told me about myself, or culture told me about myself as a woman, that I wasn't good enough, that like a husband wouldn't want me one day because of my experiences as a child, I would be dead already, to be honest, because those were too hard for me to face. But when I faced the truth of Jesus, that I am loved, he's redeemed me, and that I've never not been loved by him, and he's never not been there with me, that's when I can fully lean into life. So hear voices, you're going to, but test the words and listen to love. If it's not rooted in love, you don't need to be listening to it. Let's pray. Jesus, this is sacred, this space. Every person in the room, every person that listens to this in the future, they are completely, wholly loved by you. The only things that you have spoken over them is love and life. So, Lord, if they start to dissect parts of their life and their history, and they're hearing things that are not rooted in love, that are not from you, I pray that we can identify that together and that we can place that in just the trash can and incinerate it together, because those aren't from you. We don't need those. We need every word that comes from your mouth. We need every word that leads us to love ourselves and to love others. We need every word that leads to life. We know that our voice has the power of life and death. So I pray that we will all use our voice to push an agenda of life and life to the fullest. That you would resurrect the image of ourselves that we have. And if any of us hates ourselves, that you would fix that right now, Lord. You are fully able to do so. We love you so much, and we thank you for each and every one of our stories. Amen.